Out of the 195 countries in the world, the UN has 193 governments of these countries signed up to forward their non-binding agenda. That's a lot of governments, and none of them, or their people, are being advised to have a Bill of Rights that says anything about petition, probable cause, trial by jury, due process, unreasonable searches, excessive bail, or free states.
And you can read through most of each of these documents, but they also say then, but we can pass a law to suspend it. You can't suspend a Bill of Rights, anything in the Bill of Rights in the United States.
If this is the UN's view of human rights, it sounds like their agenda is not only a plan for a police state, but a global police state.
A globalist totalitarian society would look something like Soviet Russia or Nazi Germany on steroids. And it would be comprised of a large population of order followers that would be willing to carry out the commands of oligarchical elitists at the top of the food chain of power.
The worst thing is, nowhere in the UN's declaration is the right to keep and bear arms, or the right to own real estate, what the founders called private property. These omissions guarantee what we're looking at could really be nasty, especially if the wrong people got in there to rule.
When you look at the basic liberties of man protected in the Constitution, firearms ownership and property rights are two of the most essential freedoms. They are, in many ways, two of the things that separate America from most of the rest of the world.
But global police state aside, if bearing arms and owning private property are missing, this also guarantees the UN's goal of combating poverty is impossible. Worse, if the UN knows this goal is impossible, because it knows people cannot get out of poverty unless they are free to own and register real estate, the agenda set forth in Agenda 21 is absolutely bogus.
Private property ownership is the greatest force in eliminating poverty. Where else do the average people have to build a substantial amount of wealth other than their property? Private property ownership, the equity in private property, is the means to create new businesses. 60% of American businesses were started by people using equity in their private property, and 60% of the American people were employed. And that's how we build an economy. That's how the United States, being one of the only countries in the world that really protected private property, became as wealthy and as free as it did in such a short period of time.
And just as bad as depriving people of the ability to feed themselves is depriving them of the ability to protect themselves. This is why the Founding Fathers clearly state in the American Bill of Rights that a well-regulated militia is necessary to the security of a free state. Therefore, the right of the people to keep and bear arms cannot be infringed.
The author, who we believe is Richard Henry Lee, said, it is essential to the preservation of liberty that the whole body of the people be trained. Okay, that's what well-regulated means. It means well-trained. And it doesn't mean government-regulated, in spite of what the government politicians and lawyers say. So essential to the preservation of liberty is having a well-trained body of people. Remember, he says the whole body of the people who are present and ready at a moment's notice.
But since the UN's Bill of Rights makes no mention of the right to keep and bear arms, one can only assume that the people in most of the UN's member nations do not have the right to keep and bear arms. Hence, none of them are on the way to being a free state, another term that's missing.
If the United Nations eliminates gun ownership and property rights or real estate ownership, the implications simply are this: we are then brought into bondage and we become hopeless and helpless because we will not be able to defend ourselves, our lives, our liberty, or our families.
If people are denied the right to private property and to arms, they will not be free. The idea behind this is that private property includes your person. and it extends to the idea that you can defend your body, your private property, as necessary. So the notion of these ideas is key to the establishment of America and to America's success to date.
So why is the United States one of the member states of the United Nations? This is a major outpoint and one that we, the people of the United States, should take a serious look at. If the UN's agenda is to partner, unite all the governments of Earth, and people do not have the right to keep and bear arms, who gets to keep and bear arms? Easy, all of the governments.
Is the arms-bearing stratum of society the mass of the people themselves, or is it some select group? And if it's some select group, who controls the ability of that select group to use those arms potentially against the rest of society? That's always been the conflict throughout history, right? Because what is government? I think Washington says this. Government is not eloquence. Government is force. That's the final analysis. And the armed stratum of society is the one that exercises that force. And the people who exercise force, the ultimate force in society, are considered what? The sovereigns. And under our system of government, the sovereigns are the people themselves. Therefore, they must have the ultimate control over force, and that's done through the militia structure.
So no guns and no real estate recommended in the UN's agenda for the 21st century. If this is the plan, it means there will be no free states and poverty will never go away. It means not only world domination, but universal poverty.